When I'm feeding a crowd, I often turn to a lasagna, and I'm not going to show you the classic version with bolognese. I'm changing mine up slightly by using some pumpkin and prosciutto. This is a standout dish. I'm also going to add some pecorino cheese and, just to tie it all together, some sage, because sage and pumpkin work so well together. So I've got 1.5 kilos of pumpkin. You could use Jap pumpkin, you could also use butternut. I've used butternut, but you need quite a lot of pumpkin for this recipe because we're substituting the meat sauce for the pumpkin. So I've just steamed that. I've cut them into 3 centimetre pieces. You could also roast it in the oven. I find steaming just much faster. And I've also thrown in 3 garlic cloves, and you can see how soft they become after they've cooked down. So you just pop that all into a steamer and then steam them away until they're super tender. Grab one of your mashers and just mash that. You don't need to make it into a puree, just roughly mash this. Now, you don't need to stop at pumpkin for this recipe. I've actually done it with sweet potato too. Even a mixture of root vegetables like carrots, sweet potato and pumpkin, it just works so nicely. So after you've given that a bit of a mash, we'll just pop that to one side. And it's okay if it's still warm too. In fact, it's even better. Okay, now on to the bechamel. We need a good amount of bechamel for this because we do have the lasagna sheets that do need to cook through. So I'm going to place my pot on a medium heat. You don't want it to be too hot because I don't want to burn the butter. So we're using unsalted butter. We want about 80 grams of butter. And I'm just going to melt that in the pot before we start adding the flour. So this is just a classic bechamel. I'm going to add loads of cheese to it. So in that goes. And I'll just grab my wooden spoon. And once that starts to become bubbly, we can add our flour. So I've got about 80 grams of butter to 80 grams of flour. And do cook that flour off, just to cook off the rawness. Keep stirring it. And once that starts to look like a paste and it's bubbling away, we can add our milk. So I've got about 800 mils of milk to about 1 litre. I'll add a little bit, stir that in. Once that thickens up a bit, add a little bit more milk. Keep stirring. And there's no reason why you can't transfer over from a wooden spoon to a whisk. That just ensures we don't get any lumps. I'm going to continue doing this until we've got a lovely, thick, silky sauce. All right, we've got the perfect consistency. Now we need to add flavour to this, so a good pinch of salt. It's quite a lot of sauce, so salt, freshly cracked pepper, and some nutmeg, a little pinch of nutmeg. And I want to be quite heavy with the lemon zest for this. Lemon zest is just going to really brighten up this sauce because it is quite a rich sauce. So I'm going to zest 1 whole lemon, really trying to get it all. You see I'm using a fine grater for this and just scraping the top of it. You don't want to get that white pith because that makes it bitter as opposed to that stunning perfume of the lemon. So keep rolling the lemon around and we'll just give that one last whisk. Now, it is a cheesy sauce, so let's add the cheese. I'm using pecorino. It's got more of a funky, intense flavour, quite sharp, but if you don't want to use some pecorino, of course, Parmesan would work just as well. So I'm going to add half, and the rest we're going to use throughout the layers and on top. So we'll just melt that in. I have turned my stove top off. I just want the residual heat of the sauce to melt that cheese. If that was rapidly boiling, it may turn into little clumps, almost like waxy consistency, so we don't want that. And a hint of mozzarella. Not too much mozzarella. Again, we want that for the layers and for the top. So we'll just mix that in one last time. And now for the fun part, which is layering. A little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil on the base of a dish. You want about a 3 litre dish. Use your hands just to spread that all around just so nothing sticks. I'm going to start with our pumpkin puree, a thin layer of that, and we'll just use another spoon just to spread that out. You can see how easy it is to put together without having to do a whole meat sauce, which adds another hour to the dish. I'm also going to add some bechamel at this stage too. Oh, look how stringy and cheesy that is from the mozzarella. Drizzle that over. Fantastic. And I'm using instant lasagna sheets here. You could use fresh ones if you like. Press that down. I'll continue the process, so some more pumpkin. And spread that so it's covering majority of the pasta. Some more bechamel. Drizzle that over. Oh, look at that. And don't forget the prosciutto. So I've asked my delicatessen to cut it quite thin and leave the fat on it. It's one of my little pet hates when you get gorgeous prosciutto and all of that fat's being cut off. That's flavour. So nice thin slices that you can almost see through the prosciutto. And we're going to place that along there. And because it's so thin, as it cooks, it just becomes so soft, almost melts into the dish. It's delicious. I have also done this with speck or pancetta. Again, ask your delicatessen to cut it super fine. So that's the first layer done. I'm going to add a little bit more of this bechamel and just repeat the process. I'll also add a little bit of cheese throughout the layers too. All right, this needs to go into the oven. I'm going to cover it with some baking paper, just over the top, along with some foil. And this is going to cook for about 35 minutes to start with. I'm going to take the foil off and the baking paper and continue cooking for a further 30 minutes so it goes lovely and golden brown. Now, while the lasagna is cooking, I'm going to put on another very quick sauce. This is just a can of crushed tomatoes, and I'm going to add that to a pot. And we just need to season this quite generously with some salt. And I also like to add some extra virgin olive oil. So no frying of garlic or onions at all. Then I want to reduce this by about a third. And this is going to sit at the bottom of the lasagna when we serve it. It's just a lovely little touch to go with the pumpkin. The sauce has reduced significantly, so it's thick and rich. And have a look at this lasagna. I'm so happy with it. See how caramelized it is. With any type of lasagna, whether it's this one or your classic one, you need to allow it to rest. So don't take it straight from the oven to the table. It's too hot. It needs to settle and absorb all of that bechamel sauce. So let it sit there for about 15 to 20 minutes, even longer. It's such a large dish, it will stay warm. And we can start plating up. So I'm going to grab a spoon just to add a little of this sauce at the bottom. I just love the addition of an extra sauce with this because it is quite creamy with all the bechamel and the pumpkin. I'll just grab a knife, I'm going to cut a little portion out. Perfectly cooked. And I'll just scoop that out. Let's have a look at these layers. Ooh. Cheesy, pumpkin-y goodness. So good. And look at those little speckles of prosciutto. I should mention, if you want to keep this 100% vegetarian, just leave out the prosciutto. You don't need to sub the prosciutto for any other ingredient. That pumpkin and bechamel is good enough, particularly with the tomato sauce around it. And finishing touches, some pecorino. And these are the sage leaves. I've just fried them in some oil for a few moments, less than 10 seconds. It's just me showing off, right? But it is a lovely addition. Okay, I have to taste this. When you make a lasagna and it takes time, you want to taste all of these flavours together. The sage leaf there. Sweet pumpkin, salty prosciutto. And because it's so thin, it just melts in your mouth. And then you've got that zing from the acidity of the tomatoes. If you're a fan of lasagna, and I know there's a lot of you out there that love your lasagna, you will love this one.